Good morning, Bobby C here. Sports fans have long enjoyed video games of their favorite leagues featuring star players. Our Sports Roundup this morning takes us into a new world of sports where those same athletes you grew up idolizing and playing on video game systems are now actually playing video games too. We've seen plenty of that in motor racing of late, where sim racing is allowing race leagues near and far to put on races for fans starved for sports. Supercars champion Scott McLaughlin has arrived on the American motor racing scene. You could say the New Zealand racer taught the IndyCar drivers a virtual lesson. He takes the IndyCar iRacing Challenge event at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, winning his maiden voyage in the series, albeit virtually. McLaughlin was slated to drive for Team Penske at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in May, but the ongoing coronavirus pandemic has caused the postponement of all major racing events, including the Indy 500. This caused the action to head into the virtual world, with drivers from the IndyCar series, including Australian Will Power and defending champion Joseph Newgarden, along with NASCAR legend and seven-time Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson, battling it out on the online racing simulator iRacing. The two-time champion McLaughlin won Saturday. Power finished second. We caught up with Power, an IndyCar living legend, and asked him about the staying power of sim racing.
Next up, we're going to go to Bobby from BronxNet TV in New York City. Thanks for joining us, Bobby. You are open for business.
Thank you, Kate. This question is for Will. Will, it definitely seems that a new age of competitive virtual racing has arrived. Can you see these esport races continuing when things finally do normalize?
I do. You see it in other forms of gaming. So I think that what's really good for us as a sport is that it is pretty close to the real thing. If you're watching on TV, it's the graphics have got so good, you got to take a second look to say, well, is that real or not? So that's what's kind of lucky for us in this time. And maybe it's something that can happen in the off seasons. I'm sure the drivers aren't going to want to spend the time that you have to spend to prepare for these races. But I think it's great. I think people will start getting paid to do it like they do in other games, and it'll become pretty big. But I think people will be specialized. I don't think you'll see real life drivers, transitioning to sim racing. I just think that you'll see sim racers actually get paid and get a bit more recognition.
I know some of the drivers had actually said that they get more nervous sim racing than they do actually racing because of how peaceful it is. What is the difference for you?
Nah, it's not. It's the same. So a little bit more nervous. I mean, it's probably more nervous before. The bigger the event, the more nerves you have. I mean, sometimes I get in the real car, I have zero nerves at all. It just depends on the day and mindset.
IndyCar has a 6-event virtual series through May 2nd, 2 down, 4 to go. As for the actual race schedule, the NTT IndyCar Series is shaking it up again after news that the Detroit Grand Prix has been canceled this year due to the crisis. The suspended season had been set to kick off in the Motor City on May 30th, but will now begin at the Texas Motor Speedway on June 6th if there are no further disruptions. To make up for some of the events missed so far, the series will now hold doubleheader weekends in Iowa in July and at Laguna Seca in Monterey, California in September. A second road race has been added at the IMS on October 3rd, with the first scheduled for Saturday, July 4th, ahead of the NASCAR race on Indy's Oval on July 5th. In the meantime, virtual racing will have to do. It's actually been pretty good. Ferrari's new frontman, Charles Leclerc, took his first victory of the year in quote-unquote Australia, while NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace was dropped by an actual sponsor for his online theatrics. And when you think about it, IndyCar had plenty of drama too, as a non-series driver figured out how to use the expertise of a real-life Penske engineer to get an edge at a virtual Barber Motorsports Park. Leclerc took the checkered flag at the F1 Esports Virtual GP at the Australian Grand Prix Albert Park track in Melbourne Sunday after claiming he spent up to 5 hours a day preparing for the event. After the win, Leclerc noted that he was very nervous during the event, but said that he and other drivers found the race very, very fun, and noted that they would continue to put on more races to entertain the fans during the ongoing pandemic. Meanwhile, Wallace dipped mid-race on Sunday during a virtual race broadcasted nationally on Fox Sports. In the process, his sponsor is dipping out too. William Byron led the most laps in NASCAR's first 2 virtual races, but had nothing to show for his gaming skills. The third time out, he got the win. Byron easily won the iRacing event Sunday at virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, where NASCAR would have been racing had the coronavirus pandemic not caused sports to shut down. Even motorcycle racing has gone virtual. Honda's MotoGP rookie Alex Marquez is king of the pixels in the inaugural virtual Grand Prix on the Mugello circuit after a dramatic crash-filled race sees the Spaniard cruise to victory. Like the rest of motorsport, MotoGP pushed its season further into the summer. It's slated to return in June, with the recent postponements of Italy and Spain. Meanwhile, if you're keeping count, F1 is down the first 9 races of the calendar. The Canadian Grand Prix is the latest casualty. Although President Trump has expressed optimism that sports leagues could resume play sooner than later, sports leaders have been planning for a longer postponement of games and events extending into the fall and possibly later. After meeting with the commissioners of several major sports leagues on Saturday, Trump discussed resuming sports in August, though the president later told reporters at the White House, "I can't tell you a date, but I think it's going to be sooner rather than later." Still, a range of sports leaders and public officials have cast doubt on normalcy returning anytime soon, and even fall events face uncertainty over concerns that a renewal of mass gatherings could undermine any gains made in the fight against the pandemic by then. MLB and the NBA have discussed returning sooner with no fans and perhaps all the teams in one central location under confinement. For now, it's virtual racing and other esports, like the NBA staging some 2K, WrestleMania going down with no fans, and UFC fights here and there when Dana White can find locations to stage them in front of no fans. Needless to say, interesting times we are experiencing. Stay home, stay safe. Let's get the real thing back. Let's get real life back. That's your sports. I'm Bobby C.